All right, guys, it's finally happening. I'm gonna do some work on my Beaver. Obviously, I'm back here at the shop, and just recently, I picked this up. I got my new Skylight for my RV. Now, I did get it from Icon Direct, and don't worry, haven't sold out yet. They didn't sponsor it. They just make really good skylights. And the skylight on this Beaver is a little bit odd size. It's bigger than my local supplier has, so might as well order the right one. Okay, I think we're good. Kind of the holdup on this is that, like I said in the previous video, Icon Direct is actually based out of Canada, and so it can take a little bit of a while to ship. But this is the one they assured me will fit, so the first thing we should do is open it up and make sure it does fit. Icon Direct, I just gave them the measurements of my old Skylight, and they recommended this one. All right, this seemed to be a little bit thicker quality, definitely a lot taller. And the first thing we'll notice when we get up there is that this is not smoked, it's white. They didn't have an option for me. I mean, I would have preferred tinted, but they didn't have that smoked option. But I'm gonna go with what's available. And the second thing you might notice, unlike the other skylight providers for RVs, they didn't give me a tube of sealant. They aren't warning that the wrong sealant's gonna damage the plastic, because I think that's all nonsense anyways. And when I was talking to the guy at Icon Direct, he did give me the option of taking my old Skylight off and sending it to him, and they'd make a mold and make my own Skylight. That seemed like a lot more work than I wanted to put in. We'll find out if this one works first. All right, so don't forget we have a broken Skylight right there, and there, and there, and there, and there. Oh, and definitely right there. So definitely time. Now you can see how it's smoked. Let's see if it fits. Well, to my eye, it fits. Now, if I'm reading that box correctly, it's not a perfect square. So let me try it the other way too, see if it's any better. I don't think that's any better. I think I liked it the other way. So obviously I won't take off the film until I know for sure it's going to work. I do like to try to keep the flange of the Skylight as far away from the radius as I can, because usually self-leveling sealant will start to topple over the side, and we want to not make that visible. We're trying to make a pretty coach here. So next step, let's take the Skylight off. All right, so it looks to me like this is dicor lap sealant that was used on the roof here. It's a bit tarry, but it does peel pretty easily, so it's not stretchy like silicone would be. Also, you can usually get a little Exolve or mineral spirits or 3M adhesive remover. And if you just kind of do that, that's a good way to get the dirt off. It's also a good way to prep this dicor to get resealed again. But that just means this shouldn't be too much of a pain to come off, because it should be pretty easy to push through. One thing I did just notice was right here. There's actually a big crack in it. So it's a good thing we're replacing this. I'll just get you guys set up and you can watch me do this pull the old one off, right? So again, I've always found it easier to find the edge of the flange first. Right there. Then just come back and go with it that way. If you guys can see how many layers of sealant is already on this one. I count 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. Been resealed a few times. But I do read your guys' comments, and I know what everybody says. You know, if you just get an oscillating tool, it'll make everything so much easier. And I agree with you. And we're gonna go ahead and use it. It's just got a dull blade on it. It's just a battery-powered Milwaukee one. I would never do this on a membrane roof, but this is my roof and it's a fiberglass roof, so we should be okay. faster. All right, and they're Phillips screws. I don't like anything about these screws. They're taper headed, so that's all I'm going to do is try to wedge itself in there and spread out the plastic and crack it, which is probably what happened at all those screw holes. That's why I like using the screws I use. I'll show you when I put it down. This is just plastic, and I want to spread out the actual force on the flange as much as possible. I don't want to crack the plastic, and a taper-headed screw like that, it's probably the worst thing to put on this. Do be careful. Don't slip off and damage your paint. Luckily, that's my paint. See, I make mistakes all the time. But man, I am so glad that it are Phillips screws and they aren't hex headed, because those are impossible to get off with all the sealant on top of them. Man, this is a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. This flange is broken in a lot of places. Even right here, you can see all. And right here, I don't know if you can see all the all the problems there. But yeah, this is broken in a lot of places. It's a good thing we're doing this. I mean, I don't want to complain too much. After all, this thing is over 20 years old. It is pretty flimsy. I think it was at the end of its life for sure. They used butyl tape to put that skylight down. But what I've been trying to do is save this inner lens, because this inner lens, if you can save it, that's the way to do it. Because with that skylight bubble that sticks out, if you don't have the inner lens, you can get a lot of condensation on the inside of your skylight, and that's almost as bad as a water leak or a leaking skylight, because it'll just leak down onto the frame all the way around. So I'm glad I was able to take it off without damaging this. But really, the next step is just to clean off this flange, and then we'll get the new one ready. Hopefully you should be able to see all the dirt that was coming in, especially over there, over at that corner there, at that corner there. But luckily I did know about this when I bought it. I just didn't know it was quite that bad. Before I get this sticky butyl all over the place, I have to keep going through gloves a lot. Thank you. Just gonna use my razor scraper because it's a fiberglass roof, it should come off pretty easily. Excellent. Alright, that's a good initial clean. So we'll get rid of this mess. And what's kind of cool is you can kind of see the gel coat fiberglass right here. So the gel coat where the screw went down got ripped off. So you can see the fiberglass mesh underneath. So it's a pretty good indication you had a gel coat roof on it. Next is just to use some Ecosolve to prep the surface pretty well. And then I'm going to follow up with some glass cleaner, because this will get rid of adhesives, but it won't get rid of dirt. And this will get rid of dirt, but it won't get rid of adhesives and grease and other things. So tandem works really well together. So it's going to be the rare opportunity to clean the inside lens on the other side. Of course, this is RV standard solvent cleaner. We call it Ecosolve. It's almost mineral spirits, but it doesn't leave a film or a residue. It's common in the body paint world too. Careful. Alright, so the next step is to lay this out where I want it to be. So, turn it this way. Shoo, that looks pretty good. Alright, so I think I'm going to go this way. You can almost see through where the old holes are, so we are following the flange line pretty well. There's even a factory score mark right there. Because it's a little bit longer front to back, I was able to overlap on this side a little bit more. But I think this is going to do it. Alright, this is where I take my marker out of my pocket and mark off all the way around. Right there. Cool. Now when I take it up, pretty pleased with the way that looks. Everything's covered. Alright, so the next step is obviously is to put the sealant down. Now a lot of people just use butyl tape, putty tape, whatever you want to call it. This will work just fine. I prefer on Skylights to use a liquid butyl. I'll put a picture or a link to it in here. You just put it out with a caulking gun, because putty, for putty to actually work, it's like an O-ring. It has to be compressed, and it's hard to see, but in between these two screw holes right there, this flange is likely going to buckle a little bit. It'll pucker, and so it may not seal exceptionally well right there. It'll seal fine, but I've seen too many times where putty isn't actually being compressed. And so if I use a liquid butyl, I can actually smash it into place, and I feel a lot better about that seal. And then that's actually a good adhesive to keep the vent down. And since this is the primary seal, the lap sealant on top is just the flashing to redirect water. I like to make sure that the primary seal is actually making good contact. Hope that made sense. So using this line as a guide, now I can just put my liquid butyl down. Now, generally, most Skylight the Skylights do come with this, but Icon Direct did not give me this tube. Did I put it on right? See it coming up through the, oozing up through the holes. That means we have pretty good adhesion, I think. Excellent. All right, so if you remember correctly, we were using these, look like number 10 taper-headed Phillips screws. I like having a wider head. So I'm gonna be using these. These are just number 8s, but they are these washer-headed last screws. They are exterior grade, and these are self-tappers because I like to go through that fiberglass nicely. So on this, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it up, and you can kind of see it ooze out right there. So just continue doing that. It's not necessary. I am going to go ahead and just clean off the oozed out sealant from underneath. Next step is we're going to seal this with lap sealant. But if you've been following me on my TikTok channel, I got sent some special sealant from the RV Roofman. He's calling it the Forever RV Coat Sealant System. First off, this is not a sponsored ad by any means. He wanted me to try it out, and I've never used it before, and I didn't want to use it on somebody else's coach, so I volunteered my own coach to try it out with. It looks like a silicone-based self-leveling, like this Hangs self-leveling silicone sealant that we normally use on Winnebago and Tiffin roofs. So I'm going to try this stuff out and see how it works. I will say this. In general, I don't really like to mix roof sealants on a roof, so I'll have dicor there, dicor on the back, dicor on these vents over here. So I know that this will be a different sealant than everybody else. I'm not likely the forever owner of this RV, so it could be a little bit confusing to maybe the next RV tech trying to seal over the top of this stuff. But it should never have to be sealed again unless the Skylight breaks, but it's supposed to be forever. And it looks like it's pretty durable stuff. It's part of a whole roof coating system that he sells. It actually gets rolled out, replaces everything. You can do it directly to wood, fiberglass, or even the membrane itself. It's a pretty elaborate system that he puts together. But that's the RV Roofman. But let's go ahead and try this stuff out. The instructions are on the back. It's pretty straightforward. Clean the roof and put it on. The only thing is it needs to be 40 degrees Fahrenheit and should tack up in about 30 minutes, which is pretty good. This is not a sponsorship whatsoever. I'll put a link to the stuff if you guys want to try it, but I'm not getting any sort of, how do I put it, kickback or spiff or discount code to give you. The only thing I got was 4 tubes of this stuff. If it works, it works. If not, I'll be removing it and putting on dicor likely. All right, so we'll go ahead and try it. Cut our nozzle. I've already prepped the surface. It's not dirty. All right, now traditionally on a Skylight, I like to do the radius side first so I don't put my knee in fresh sealant when I'm doing that side last, if I try to do the radius last. Remember, this is the flashing to redirect water. So I like to do a bead here first, and then go back over the top. Kind of like a shingle, so the stuff will flow over the bottom layer. You don't want to go too crazy because we don't want it to go over the side of the radius. Should be some leveling to it. Alright, might be able to see it better this way, so I'm doing that bead first. It does seem like there's a lot of air pockets in this caulking gun, or caulking tube. Now, so far what I can tell you is that it smells just like the Hang self-leveling silicone. This stuff is a much more longer lasting sealant than compared to dicor. Like, I would say this stuff is superior to dicor in every way, which is why I do like it on Winnebago and Tiffins. I've never had to reseal those unless I'm replacing the actual component. Now, that's not to say dicor properly installed on this roof wouldn't last quite a long time too. I've seen dicor last 20 years just fine too. So I'm not saying this is a bad product, but I do like silicone better. It doesn't seem to crack or tear or even discolor as much as dicor tends to. But I'll just go ahead and finish sealing this up. Like I said, a lot of the characteristics of this Forever lap sealant seems to be very similar to that hang self-leveling silicone that we use on Winnebago and Tiffin. All right, so I went ahead and I tooled with my finger one side of this. See all the swirlies on there, see how that levels out. And the rest of it, I just let lay down flat. Okay, well, I've sealed it up all the way around. I think we're pretty good. We should be nice and sealed. I did tool off this side just to see how this stuff reacts to tooling rather than just letting it flow out naturally like you would on a lap sealant. But also, this is a much more durable Skylight, so I'm pretty happy with Icon Direct on this too. They told me what size to get, they were right, and it all worked. Thanks a lot, Icon Direct. Again, not a sponsor. So they did send me an email asking me to review the purchase, but I think they send it to everybody. But there we did. We installed a new Skylight on the Beaver Patriot. The one thing I do want to show you is on the inside, because we went from this tinted, almost transparent Skylight to a more opaque Skylight. I kind of like it, because now you can't see through it too well, and now if somebody's looking down through, you couldn't see them. And with that obscure look, it kind of just feels like a cloudy day. I mean, I'm undercover, but I kind of like it. I like it a little bit more than being able to see through just a tint or that smoke look. So I think it brightened it up quite a bit. That inside lens is still on there. You can kind of see where it was, got some sealant on it. And then the dome itself is quite above it. So I do like how all that works out. And like I said, if you don't have this inner lens, it's not the end of the world, but because it is exposed so much to the air above it, you can get condensation on the inside of the dome. So I do like having this lens on there if you can keep it. That does reduce a little bit of condensation. But there it was, replacing the Skylight on my 2001 Beaver Patriot Thunder. Glad you guys joined me on that one. I have a whole series of things I have to do on this, including replacing my worn out black insert that I had in that other video. But I did find that the 5/16 screws that are in there, a lot of them are breaking and a lot of them are rusted. So I've been taking them out and I've been replacing them with new screws. And the ones that were stripped out, I've been riveting on. So this has turned into a bigger job than I thought it was gonna be. But hopefully I'll give you an update on this when I'm done. By tomorrow, the sealant, that Forever lap sealant that I put on, should be cured and ready to be tested to make sure that it's ready. Like I said, the hang self-leveling silicone usually takes almost a full week to cure, and it's not mushy underneath. So I'll be excited to see how that works out. And this is the old worn out insert. It's 22 years old. I think it's done its job. Gives me a good opportunity to secure that roof edge too and make sure everything's okay for another 20 years. So I did add a little bit of dicor on top of here just to see if it would stick. So the number one question was, does dicor stick to it? It does not, because dicor does not stick to silicone. In general, nothing sticks to silicone but silicone. So my final thoughts about this roof sealant that we used from the RV Roofman. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's basically just self-leveling silicone or Newflex 311, which is a very good product. Winnebago and Tiffin generally use that on their roofs, and I do like it. It's very long lasting, very durable. It generally never cracks. You don't have to ever touch it up or reseal it. My only concerns about me using it is a roof is just a system all put together. I may not be the only owner on this RV or the only person that ever works on it. Even though the self-leveling silicone is a superior product to dicor, not everybody is aware of it. And so when you mix up different sealants on a roof, maybe the next person that goes to reseal puts dicor on the Skylight because they don't know any better and they didn't do anything, or they caused more problems. Or vice versa. So my preference is to always use the same sealant, the same lap sealant that I can on the entire roof and not try to change it up. That way future people or different installers or workers won't have to guess about what's on the roof. So now on this roof, this is self-leveling silicone, dicor, 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 dicor. This Eternabond tape that's here, that was just for aesthetic purposes to hold down cables. It has no sealing purposes, but this is dicor, that's dicor, and of course dicor on all the cap seams. But that's why I did the experiment while we're doing the Skylight. I didn't want to experiment on somebody else's RV. But I do have zero doubts that this is going to be much more durable than anything else on this roof. And hopefully this should last at least another 20 years. Hope you guys enjoyed that and followed me along on changing out one of my weak points on my roof. I'm really glad I did the Skylight because it was in bad shape. I hope you all learned something together. And thanks a lot for watching. But I'm also going to hopefully do a transmission service and an engine oil change and a generator oil change. So maybe there'll be a video on that. But that seemed... I would say this, but that was... Let's do the fun part, right? Well, looks like it's not refundable anymore. I mean, some people would leave this on, but it's going on the flange, and all will happen is eventually it'll fling off right into the fresh sealant and cause a big mess for me, based on my experiences.